have absolutely no idea what's going on there. Seems to be playing twice. And I feel like I'm going to get some weird echo reverb. There we go. Got rid of that. There you go. Always professional. Anyway, hello. Welcome back to the first pod of the 2024-2025 championship season as we reunite to cover what are we covering, Ben?
Everything. All of it.
New signings, new kit, Cooper's contract situation. Yeah, we'll start with that. Joining me tonight, obviously you've already heard from him. Ben, how's things?
Hello, I am massive. I am one half of this screen. I hope if I'm on your screen as the larger half of this trio, I can only apologise. But yeah, all good. Feeling slightly anxious about the season ahead, but also it gets starting to get excited too. So Euros are still on. That was a cracking game between Austria and Turkey. Let's have some more of those, please, till we have to worry about staying in the championship again.
Yeah, you mentioned the Euros, Adam. You're back amongst the regulars and the best pod members.
I know, yeah. The Euros has, much like proper cup competitions, provided a welcome distraction, but it's nice to be back on firm footing, I think. That's not to say, not to worry any viewers that we're suddenly going to stop the Euros content either. We've got a big game coming up on Saturday, but this is my bread and butter, and it's always nice to be a part of.
Exactly. The international call-ups are just a bonus. Sean, obviously, it says welcome back. Obviously, the players back into pre-season today, so we decided that we should jump back into our own pre-season. Ben's having a drink, so I'll come back to you, Adam. Rooney, sunk in yet? I still find it incredibly weird, like seeing, that rousing speech he gave, but just, with the Argyle badge on his chest. I just find that mad.
Yeah, it has and it hasn't, I think. I'm not necessarily going to go over old ground again about what I necessarily think of the appointment. That's all been something we've covered, and people can find out if they want to go back. Right now, that I've settled down, which is a start, and I just think, much like Ben said there, I'm getting that excitement, that pre-season excitement now of it all coming together, and that part of the decision of the managerial move has sunk in. I still don't particularly think it's fully sunk in that that it is Wayne Rooney, and it is that guy from Man United in England that's just there in Argyle gear doing his thing. I don't think that's going to become normal for a while. It might need to be in the dugout for a couple of times before it starts to feel normal. I've settled my nerves on the decision to an extent. I've still very much not become familiar with Wayne Rooney being Plymouth Argyle manager. Even now, as I repeat it, it feels strange. But here we are, and they're back. The players are back, and we're ready to go. Let's get used to it, I guess.
Yeah, like you say, we just got to get used to it. He might not be here for a long time. He might be here for a good time. We don't know. We'll soon find out. Obviously, we head over to Spain soon, where Sam and I are going to be.
Some of us do. Some of us are lucky enough.
Topping up our tan. If you see two naked beached whales, we won't be naked, topless. We might be.
I'll say, if you've been making Sam promises you can't keep.
I'm absolutely buzzing to see us play Orlando Pirates, but we'll get onto that in a minute. Ben, any additional thoughts on Rooney? No.
No. I pretty much echo Adam's thoughts. I'm going to try and be as positive and look for all the positives. It seems that Tijani coming in, he quite liked the idea of working with Rooney, so something there of the pull that we were hoping it might. His influence might have with the squad. Whether Tijani turns out to be a good signing or not, I'm sure we're going to discuss his potential in a bit. But yeah, I think that at the moment all possibilities are open, aren't they? And that's the fun of having a new season, especially with a new manager. It could go one of a myriad ways, and we're just hoping it's one of the more positive ones.
Yeah, you obviously touched on it there. 23-year-old Nigerian striker Muhammad Tijani on loan from Slavia Prague with an option to buy. I spoke to the journalist that broke it, who's friends with Tijani. He wouldn't tell me. He wouldn't tell me publicly what the option to buy, how much that is. But maybe it'll come out if he's any good, and we spend that money. What do you make of it, Ben?
I'm actually quite positive on it. I think he scored something like 1 goal in every 5 90s he played in the league. He scored a couple of goals in the Europa League. And Slavia is definitely, the Czech Premier League. I mean, Slavia are obviously one of the better teams. I think that they're always up there competing for the title. And they came second last season, and he wasn't one of the favourite strikers. But he did all right when he was on the pitch, playing either sort of the first 50, 60 minutes or coming on more often than not. 15 out of his 25 appearances, I believe, were substitute appearances. So it is hard to sort of judge, I think, his contribution there. But to be honest, if he sort of scored 1 in every 5 90s and he played, as a sub or as the starting striker, he's going to be looking towards double figures, you'd think, for the season, and that would be a good start. He's claimed, doesn't he, he wants to score 20 for the season. Even if you took that across a whole bunch of cup runs, that would be an absolutely brilliant return, and certainly that would see him, see us activating the release clause. But I think that the year previously on loan, he'd scored sort of better than 1 in 3 at a level which is probably, the Czech second division probably is quite a drop off from the Premier. That the top clubs are playing in Europe, but then the second division sort of more comparable probably to League One, League Two. But if he can repeat what he's did at Slavia, which is got to, a team playing in the Europa League, you've got to say that's got to be bottom of the Premier League standard at least. If he's sort of competing in a squad like that and getting those numbers, he should be able, you'd think, to replicate similar or even better in the Championship. And what's more, he's a big fella, which adds a different perspective to the attack, an alternative, some nuance to what we can do as a team. We've said we could do with that alternative all of last season, I think. And so he definitely fits that profile, as with the other lads who've come in, both permanent and getting Gyabi back. Big fellas. I think every game last season I looked at Argyle, and we were probably the smallest team of the two playing, which isn't always important, but you do sometimes need a bit of physicality. And so I think getting in a big striker who provides an alternative strategy, perhaps, to the way we attack, is also a benefit in and of itself. So I'm quite hopeful. But, we just got to wait and see. He's going to get a full pre-season, so he's got the best situation to bed into. And I hope that, if he can get to double figures, if we keep Ryan Hardy this season and he's anything as good as he was, anything like as good as he was last season, if we can get Tijani, get 10 goals or more out of him, I think that puts us in a really good position.
Yeah, there's a few comments coming in about Michael Cooper. I'm sure we will get onto that in a minute. We'll ask you a question, the Janier of Plymouth, and I'll put it to the panel of two in a bit. Obviously, I've forgotten your name there, Adam. Sorry, mate.
Oh, you remember quick enough. I forgive you.
Yeah, it's because it's written underneath your face, which is quite good.
That will do it.
Obviously, with Tijani's come in and said that he wants to score. His aim is to get 20 plus goals, which would be phenomenal. I wouldn't say no to that at all. Even if they all came in one game, I'd happily take that. That would be impressive. But obviously,
if they all come in one game,
yeah, I'd be mad. Obviously, Marcus mentions it in his comment. After a year of trying to get a striker in, it's nice to finally get one, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I don't necessarily want to give too much away. There's going to be a piece on the Argyle Life website very soon about some insights I've taken on Tijani. Generally speaking, I'm encouraged. I think I often use Football Manager analogies while I'm on here. So the one I'd put here is like Tijani is the classic 2.5 star current ability, 4.5 star potential, because there's a lot about him that I like. And for me, I think it just needs to click. He's a player that takes a huge number of shots from what I've seen. He had more shots per 90 last season than even Morgan Whittaker did, which is, it's significant. Morgan Whittaker would shoot from wherever he liked, and we always liked him to do that. Admittedly, the goals didn't quite match it. So there's no XG stats that I've found for the Czech top flight. Whether that's my failure or the internet's, I'll leave for everyone to judge. But
I
I
feel like
imagine
that's yours.
probably
I feel like that's your
every
failure.
chance. It wouldn't be the first time. I feel either way, like he's probably underperformed against his XG because of his number of shots and the fact that he didn't quite have the goals to match it. So you can view that one of two ways. You can either say, as the comments come up there, he can't hit a barn door. Or if you're optimistic, you could say he's getting those chances. You'd expect it to be closer to the mean later on, and he will improve, and he will therefore prove to be a successful side. And I think he absolutely can. One other thing that I just want to touch on is he commits a significant number of fouls, which just his physicality is something else. He's comfortably committed more fouls per 90 than anyone in our goal squad this season. Nobody in the championship who played more minutes than he did last season committed more fouls per 90. And I think that gives us an idea of the sort of player he will be, particularly off the ball. He's going to challenge. He's going to put his body there. He's going to make sure the defenders know he's there. And he does have that Ryan Taylor style ability to focus defenders' minds elsewhere, whilst also bringing others into play, which I'm sure Whittaker would love. So we'll see. He possibly needs to err on the right side of the laws of the game, which he doesn't always. But I'm convinced that he provides us something. And to go back to the initial comment of bringing in a striker, it's absolutely reassuring because I know there was a lot of conversation last season about that we didn't really replace Niall Ennis, and whether he will act as that Ennis replacement remains to be seen. But what I think he certainly does do and does give us something is as a replacement for Sam Cosgrove, because that's something we lacked for all of last season, is a striker that was a little different, that would give us that plan B. If we want to, comment on the screen exactly what I was saying. The plans B and C are there. Even if Tijani doesn't hit those 20 goals, which he might not. He could still give us that sort of influence, like Cosgrove did. So yeah, there are obviously flaws to his game. He's underperforming. I assume he's underperforming his XG. He's got to improve his finishing, but he's working with one of the best strikers this country has ever produced, and he wants to be working with him as well. So that's got to be a start. We'll see. As I say, I'm encouraged, and just again, as the comment said, absolutely delighted to get a striker in.
Just to add to what Adam was saying, I couldn't find any XG for the Czech top flight, but I could for the Europa League. And in the Europa League, I don't know if you found this or not, Adam, but he was scoring one goal for every 1.01 XG, so pretty much bang on. Okay. But again, that's a very, very limited sample size, which isn't particularly useful for drawing extrapolations. But if it was anything like that for the Czech top flight, that would be pretty good. And would suggest he's taking shots from all over the place, which again might need to be addressed. But either he's taking ridiculous shots and some of them are going in, or as Adam suggests, he's probably underperforming his XG. But again, those things are solvable.
Yeah, I did speak to, I'm going to absolutely butcher his name, and I'm really sorry for this. I did speak to Ajura Babatunde earlier, the journalist who's quite close. I've already mentioned this. There's going to be a separate bonus pod. It's like literally 10 minutes long because he had to halfway through, he had to go to Albania or Austria or something. So it's incredibly short. It might be more insightful to read Ben Adam's piece. God, I'm doing well tonight. You can tell I'm rusty. That's what pre-season's for. There's quite a few comments coming in about who needing an Azaz style player and stuff. We'll get onto those. But somebody else we have signed, Ben Darko Gyabi returns. Any thoughts on that? You happy?
Yeah, I am. I think I said it after his first or second game. I think it was the second game that of the three of the guys who played regularly, Devine and Phillips included, those three loanees we got in January who played a lot. He probably was the rawest, but also in my mind had the biggest ceiling. Some of the things he did were quite extraordinary and eye-catching, and he also made quite a few sloppy mistakes. I think Phillips and Devine sort of struggled with form towards the end of the season. And towards the end of the Foster period as well. So that's maybe not quite so fair to judge them. But I did think JB had a lot of promise. And I feel like whether he's more of a defensive midfielder or depending on the system Rooney wants to play with the squad available to him, if he's playing slightly more further forward, he's definitely got the athleticism we need we were getting overrun on the turn and on the counter at times last season. So he's definitely got the physicality to do a job as an enforcer in the middle. And he's also got the ability to go forward as needs to be. Can be a box to box if we want to sort of have that sort of role in the team. So I do think he's very versatile, and his physicality is an attribute, as I mentioned, talking about the new striker too. So I think all in all, he's a and as I've been saying in the group chat, we've got a real need in midfield. We've got a real need up front, and we've got two bodies in those positions now who will at least be serviceable at this level. We saw JB could do a job at least of average quality, and potentially like a Middlesbrough, a real class at times. And Tijani will do a job up front as a different style of striker. We've got two bodies in now in those really needed positions. We've got quite a full squad. Now the club can take its time to if there's better options, if there's a few even better midfielders out there they can get, if there's a few really good strikers available, they could go for one perhaps. But at least we've got bodies in now. We're not going to be caught short like we were last season with all the eggs in one basket. So I think that's a bonus about getting. I think the club have done well to bring in a midfielder they know and trust, and a striking option early doors, so that those gaps are filled. And I think if we were to bring in another couple of midfielders who would potentially go ahead of him in the pecking order, no one would complain, including himself. He's here to learn or whatever. He'll get enough minutes, but I think even if he is it one of our starting midfielders more often than not, I don't think we will struggle, because I think he's really got a lot of promise.
Yeah, obviously, Adam, you've got a piece coming up on the site, without giving it away, a nice little welcome back piece, a sort of semi-new signing analyse / obviously, he said in his press, I didn't listen to it, but I just saw the little clip that the club put out. He said that it's got unfinished business. Is that how you feel as well?
Yeah, and much like Ben, I'm happy he's back. I think analysing him and his numbers, as much as I have tried to do it, is a little tricky because of the obvious. He's only ever played for Argyle under Ian Foster, which didn't particularly suit anybody. So trying to take numbers from that is difficult. What I will say nonetheless is that he is a battler. He does get himself in there, and he does use his physicality, much like Tijani does. So there may be a pattern there with what the signings we're looking for under Rudy. But I've changed my view somewhat from when I first looked at him, because based on how he played at the Under-20 World Cup, I had the impression that he may be able to fit into any midfield position in Foster's system. And to be fair, that is how Foster tried to use him. It was a number 10, if you want to call it that, on occasions, and slightly deeper in others. I think going forward at the back could help. My impression is that a 4-3-3, with one of Houghton or Forshaw sitting deeper and JB to the left, would get the best out of him, because he could still press and he could still go in for those jaws as we know he likes to, but he wouldn't have to worry quite as much about what would happen if he loses the duel. And when he gets the ball, it wouldn't necessarily be in the advanced position, but it would be deeper. It would give him the chance to run onto it, give him a chance to go further up the pitch with the ball, accelerate, and put defenders under pressure. It reminds me a lot, actually, and I know they are obviously different players in many ways, but it reminds me a lot of how in seasons gone by, Anthony Sarcevic would press from the midfield. Getting him on the ball in an advanced position for his first touch didn't get the best out of him. When you started him a little bit deeper and got him to run forward, you saw the best. And I feel like JB may well be that sort of player. So it's going to depend a lot on how he's used. As I say, I think 4-3-3 suits him best. But plenty more can change, obviously, between now and the first day. We may see some completely new signings, and that midfield structure changes again. One final thing I might mention is this is a weird loan in the sense that potential matters. You're usually looking at a situation with a loan where the borrowing club, as we are only really focused on the here and now rather than how they'll be in the future. That's what the parent clubs worry about. But with JB, providing he doesn't get recalled, as we've seen in the past, it will have been more or less a year and a half since he first joined Argyle. You would expect across that time to see a significantly different and a significantly better player, having played as regularly as he can across those 18 months. If we can tap into that potential he undoubtedly has, because Leeds didn't pay 5 million for him for no reason. If we can get even an ounce of that across the season and see him leave home park as a much better player as he was when he arrived, we'll have done well. And with a loan signing, I think that's probably the best you can ask for.
Yeah, obviously a bit like the player Finazaz became, right? Obviously, 18 months later, he was an absolute world beater. So in that, it's going to be an absolute shame to see Darko Gyabi go to Millwall for £1 million after we've progressed him into an absolute world beater. It's just going to happen. Do you think there should have been some sort of like option to buy, or do you think they would have just priced us out of that?
Probably, yeah. I mean, he's still only 20. He went as I think it was 5 million. If not, it was very close. Hey, perhaps maybe we did inquire, but I don't think it's the sort of fee that we'd be even thinking of spending. At least, right now. Okay, if we're looking at the other side and we've had a few key players leave for many millions of pounds, which I know we're probably going to come on to, that may be another matter. But right now, I think any fee is something we'd bolt at.
Players leaving. I'm not sure we're going to talk about that.
I've heard one or two rumours, but I'll
no,
let you take over.
No, thank you. We'll keep them all. Thank you very much. Obviously, Adam, we'll just switch the order. We'll go back to you again. Obviously, Nathaniel Ogbeta is our first summer signing. Left back from Bolton. You're really stretching my memory here. I can't remember that far back.
You're close enough. He was at loan at Bolton, but he's officially come from Swansea.
Oh, there we go. Oh, we like a fullback from Swansea, don't we? So hopefully Swansea fans are saying he's absolutely rubbish, because then we know he's going to be quite good. Obviously, you've done a piece on him as well that people could have read if they weren't linked to the Matty Soronola piece accidentally. Any thoughts on Ogbeta? You happy with him?
I am, yeah. I'm positively encouraged. I think the key for me, of course, is that the majority of his football has come at League One. We've seen with a lot of our players that some will go from League One to the Championship, take to it like a duck to water, as Az did, Whittaker did, and some may struggle a little bit. I'm looking at Mumba as an example. He didn't have an awful season, but he didn't hit the heights as those other two that I've mentioned did, because that jump can be quite difficult. If he makes that jump, I'm certainly encouraged by what I've seen in the numbers. The way that I could describe how he could operate at his best is if we ask the question, what if Mickel Miller had some end product? Because he still completes those runs. He still gets into those areas on the left where I think people will be excited watching him as he gets into the spaces. But he's created an awful lot of big chances in his time, in his last two loan spells at Peterborough and Bolton, in a way that Miller simply didn't. So, as I say, that's not... I can't suggest that will happen, because we're playing at a different level and he's not got regular minutes in the Championship across his career. But he can be like that, and if he works on it and achieves his potential, that's the sort of player we will see. So I think, all in all, Ogbeta's easily a direct replacement for Miller, and at his best, he will absolutely be an upgrade on Miller. Exactly as the comment comes in, I completely agree. So hopefully that is the case, and hopefully that's what we see.
Yeah, Ben, I don't know if you've got anything to add on Nathaniel Ogbeta, but one player I did want to touch on. Obviously, we kept his services over the summer. Obviously, the Wayne Rooney factor was cited online as a reason why Brendan Galloway stays. Just how oh, what a man, what a player, what a boy. Absolutely love Brendan Galloway. Just how big a boost is that going into next season that we don't have to replace him?
Yeah, I think it's huge. I think that we really saw when his confidence in his body returned and he was, smashing into tackles and things. I think he really works. And again, the flexibility of being able to play centre back or full back is brilliant. I think he's along with Gibson, vying as our best centre back by a country mile. And if Gibson is linked away, I know there've been sort of whispered rumours, but if that ever does become concrete, having him in the club puts the club in a much stronger bargaining position to be able to cope afterwards. We're not having to take the money for Gibson if he goes somewhere, and then people know we've got the money and go out and quickly find a replacement. We've got. I feel he could fill Gibson's shoes quite admirably, and to go and find someone for a decent fee who could perform like Gibson did last season on the regular would be almost impossible. The regular being the caveat, the question mark over Galloway, isn't it? He's really struggled to keep fit, although there's no reason why he could go on a good run, good healthy streak of a season or two of consistent performances without injury. Now that he's seems to have recovered fully from all of those. But yeah, I think he's a real. There's for Argyle to stay up this season, as we'll discuss later, I think with the sort of the fixtures and the teams we've got, we're going to need X factors in certain positions. We're going to need sort of the what do they call it in fantasy football when you have someone who is like no one else has? There's a word for that where like
differential or something.
Differential, that's it, Adam. Thank you. We need those differentials. Like Mike Cooper's an example of that, where his quality last season kept us up. I think it was just a slight on Hazard, or but I feel like if Mike Cooper hadn't played the run in, I don't think Argyle would have stayed up. And we need those kind of differentials in place. We kind of need players that we've that have come good on the risk that the club have taken on them in different spots. And Galloway definitely is one of those. I think that Gibson was another one. And I think if we keep losing all of those without hitting on their replacements, then we'll struggle. So Galloway staying, I think, is massive.
Obviously, you've mentioned him there, Ben, Mickel Cooper. Rumoured to be on his way out. Obviously, rejected a new contract deal, which would have made him the highest paid player in Argyle history. Most probably still paid a lot less than what Alfie Bayes just joined Birmingham for, annoyingly. But just how obviously, like, I understand that the idea of a youth system is to get these players to come through, build them up, and sell them on for a huge profit. But at the same time, it feels like an absolute punch in the gut that we might lose arguably not arguably the best goalkeeper that I've ever seen at Argyle, and that includes Luke and Roman. But obviously I didn't see any before that, but just the best talent ever to come out of this club, we're going to lose him for arguably a cut price of his actual value. Yeah, that's not really a question, is it? Thoughts? How little do you want to lose Mickel Cooper?
Well, I'll just jump in because I'll be quick. I think, like I said, he is one of those differentials. He makes a difference. He saves us several points this season if he stays. And he certainly saved us a good number of points, even though he didn't play the full season last season. I feel like you need, in our position, with the budget and the place that we're sort of fighting in this season, you need as many of those differentials, if I can call them that, as you can get. And if some of the numbers that are being quoted as transfer fees are real, I genuinely think the club could decide to, or it might be advisable to, keep him and let him walk on a free, because I think the points that he could add to our total by the end of the season might make the difference between survival and relegation, and would be worth more than the some of the fees. I wouldn't call them paltry because they're six figure, but or seven figure rather. But I genuinely think he might be worth more to keep for a season than some of the money that's being offered. So I think it would be massive to lose him, and it'd be really, really sad. I think he's no one's got a bad word to say about him. He clearly loves the club. He was really important in the run-in, both on the pitch, but also as a leader, he fronted up to the media, was very honest. I think the fans really enjoyed and appreciated his candid comments during difficult times last season. So yeah, I think everyone would be devastated to see him go, but he'd go with a lot of well wishes, I think. And I think if he might not go unless the fee is. Well, it would possibly not be sensible to let him go unless the fee is impossible to turn down, because he really is an his stats were phenomenal last season, and if he can replicate that this season, it could be the difference between survival and relegation.
It almost feels like any player that we sign to replace. I'm sure we'll get onto the whether Hazard's good enough to step up to the number one slot in a minute. But anybody that we were to pay out to replace him would cost us, as you say, Ben, like the cost of replacing him and the points he wins us just isn't worth. It's worth much more than 3, 4, 5 million, in my opinion, unless we're hitting the 8, 9, 10 mil. Adam, again, bit flustered here. Not used to this. Still rusty.
Yeah, I have that.
Michael
effect
Cooper.
on me,
Yeah, I know. Heartthrob. Michael Cooper, take it away. There's a few questions here about does anybody think Michael Cooper would join Schumacher at Stoke? I can't see that with Johansson. And Paul Burke asks, what would be a reasonable fee for Michael Cooper?
Yeah, so I'll try to cover as many off as I can. I think
all
just
those brilliant questions I asked you first, and then
you know how it is. Yeah, I think well, a great guy once said about one of his players tearfully, he cannot be replaced. I won't try the accent because I'm not John Alsop ultimately, but Cooper cannot be replaced. He's as Ben's mentioned, his stats last season were just genuinely sensational, and I fully believe without him we would have gone down. So it's tough. It is tough. But if I'm honest, I know there's been a discussion about is it worth keeping him? Would it be worth having him in place for another season, then losing him next year rather than selling him now? Like, would that ultimately serve us better? Maybe. But in my mind, to be honest, I've already, and I don't know, it's just natural pessimism, resigned myself to the fact that he will go. I think it's much more likely than not. And the way that Argyle as a club are run, I'd be much more surprised, to be honest, if we kept him than I would be if he left and we weren't looking to try and get a fee on that. To be honest, in terms of reasonable fees, I've had the figure of 8 million in my mind for a little while. I don't know if that's realistic, but it's something that I would be willing to accept for someone with a year left on his contract. Because let's not forget, we still are in a good negotiating position in the sense that Cooper is outstanding. And clubs will have access to the stats that we have and more, and they will know how good Michael Cooper is, and almost more importantly, how good Michael Cooper can be, because he's still very, very young for a goalkeeper. So we can look to demand those, and we can look, say, for example, to mention, okay, well, we will let him go. We also want a pretty significant sell-on clause because of the fees that have been rumoured for the likes of James Trafford. Yeah, comment there, exactly. That have been mentioned for the likes of James Trafford and the way that they're going. I think there's every chance that the club we sell him on to could eventually look to sell him to a top club for many millions of pounds. So that kind of leaves us with two questions, which is where does he go and who replaces him? It's been mentioned. Does it seem likely it'll be Stoke? I don't think so. For exactly the thing that you said, Aaron, they brought in Johansson now as a very, very good shot stopper, and he wouldn't be going there for number 2. I've seen clubs like Leicester mentioned. Leicester would surprise me a little bit as well. They have Mads Manson, who, if you were to discount Cooper and just consider the keepers that had been in goal for all of last season, was absolutely up there with one of the best. And I think it would be a surprise if they didn't give him a chance back at Premier League, unless, of course, they're in such dire financial straits they have to sell him, and they're trying to see Cooper with a year on his contract as a cheap option. My best guess right now, and it's one that, Aaron, I don't think you'll find a surprise because you've mentioned it in recent days, is Ipswich Town. They are now they've got rid of Václav Hladky, who I think it's been a little overstated how good he was last season. He was undoubtedly very good, but he did drop off a little as the season went on, and Cooper would absolutely be an upgrade.
I would take him at Home Park as a replacement.
I think he's one of the options, and then if I go to say the second question as to who we get in and is Hazard good enough? There's a couple of things on that. If you were to ask me middle of last season, for example, did I think that Hazard would be good enough? I'd say that he probably would, because his shot stopping, nobody we've got is going to match Michael Cooper for his shot stopping, and chances are nobody we can get is going to match Michael Cooper at shot stopping. But Hazard was fine. He didn't significantly overperform as you think, but he didn't underperform either, and that at the very least is a start. The thing is, if you were to ask me now, I don't think he's the sort of player that would fit in for Rooney and the way he wants to play. We know he likes his goalkeeper to be good with his feet. We know he puts a lot of value on distribution, and Hazard just doesn't have that. And when I say he doesn't have that, it's not as if he can, he just needs to work on his distribution. He doesn't have that by quite a long way. And that's something that I think it would be very difficult for him to pick up in the intervening time before the season starts. So we are probably looking at replacements. Sladky has been mentioned in a couple of ways. I think, thank goodness, this news came out. If there's one good thing Michael Cooper has given us, is that this news came out when Ryan Alsop has already moved clubs. Because if he hadn't, I imagine Rooney would have been all over that, and I think he's a terrible option. So it feels like a real bullet dodged. Yeah, there's probably plenty more out there. I mean, this time last year, nobody would have thought, we'll sign Conor Hazard as a goalkeeper. As I've said, clubs have access to a lot of data, and one of these data-driven signings could suit us. But none of them is going to be as good as Cooper. He cannot be replaced, as I say. And yeah, all in all, as much as I think selling is the best option, and I think selling is the way it'll go, it doesn't make it any less sad.
Yeah, Ben, as Conor Hazard's biggest fan, can you see any reason why he would be able to step up? Obviously, Adam's already touched on the fact that Rooney likes a keeper to play with his feet, and he might not be the best at distribution. But can you make a case for Hazard being our number one?
It's difficult. If we already had other keepers in the club, I'd say yes. But the fact is, we're going to need a keeper either way, whether we were aiming to bring in a number two, a definite number one, or someone to compete for the number one spot with Hazard. So, if we had three keepers on the books who, we're looking to give experience to, or we think are good enough, like, for example, last season when we had, another keeper with experience in the first team on the books, you could say, well, yeah, the club might look to reinforce elsewhere, but we're going to need to get another keeper anyway. And if you're going to look to get another keeper anyway, even if it's just someone on the cheap or as a competitor for the number one jersey, as Adam suggests, you're likely to look for someone who fits the profile that the manager's looking for, and then automatically that person has an edge in the race for the number one jersey, even if maybe their other attributes are slightly lower. If they add to the team's ability to play out from the back or to fit the patterns of play that the manager wants from the team, then he's likely to forgive him more than he would forgive Conor Hazard, for example. So I think, irrespective of whether I think Hazard could perform as a number one or not, it's a bit of a moot point, because there's a good chance that whoever's coming in is going to be the number one. I mean, yes, he could. I think he's a serviceable championship keeper. I think he's smack bang in the mean for performance amongst keepers from last season, in terms of shot stopping and in terms of the defensive aspects of a keeper's job. But in terms of the progressive aspects, as Adam suggests, I don't think he's got the requisite skills, especially for the style the manager wants to employ. Even at a different club, I think he would struggle with his distribution, but especially here, where the manager's likely to want him to form an important part of the build-up. So, yeah, I mean, it seems harsh to pick on a guy whose actual job of stopping the ball going in the net he's actually pretty good at, sort of like bang in the middle average for the league he's in, and say he's not good enough on the basis of those. But that's the modern role of the goalkeeper, isn't it? So you could make a case on his defensive attributes, but it just seems that with the need to bring in a keeper of some sort anyway, he's very likely to be at best competing for the number one jersey.
Yeah, it almost feels like, I can't remember the conversation I had with somebody on Twitter about, they said about bringing a third choice goalkeeper so Zach Baker could challenge Conor Hazard. I'm not quite sure he's ready for that yet. And I also just cannot see any keeper ever, no matter what league we're in, even though we have had three keepers in the past, deliberately up in sticks, moving all the way down to Plymouth just to be a third choice keeper. It's not the Scott Carson role, is it, where they're being paid an absolute fortune to win the Champions League? That would be nice. We'll get there one day, but just not yet. Is there anybody in your head, Ben, that you'd want in? Any realistic?
Not really. I think Hladky is the one that I would, would definitely want to
Is he
pursue
realistic?
of those. No, I don't think it is. Having just sort of one promotion and won quite a lot of plaudits while he's at it, whether they're deserved or not, as Adam would try and suggest, I think they were pretty well deserved. I don't think there was too much that was overly effusive, but he wasn't necessarily the. I think the difference with Hladky to some of the other keepers is that he kept. There were lots of Ipswich wins by one goal, and he sort of made the difference in getting them over the line in those games. So it did perhaps highlight his performances more than would you'd expect. But he's likely, given that performance last season and where his team finished, to be having his sights on an upper championship level team or even better or equivalent position and wages around Europe somewhere. So I don't think he's probably realistic. Same as Johansson. I think the club probably inquired about Johansson with the thought that Michael Cooper might not tie down, and Stoke were the ones with the biggest wallets in the front of that queue, aren't they? So I don't think there's anybody out there right now who jumps off the page as an idea. Someone who's in a vulnerable position, say like Cooper with a year left on his contract, who you think he'd be ready for a step up, etc., etc. But that's just I've not an exhaustive knowledge of the goalkeeper market currently. But I think Hladky, if we could get him in, we'd like you, I'd be very comfortable to let if we have to let Cooper go for say 4 million, but we can get Hladky in, even with a massive signing on bonus, I'd be very happy. I could live with that. But yeah, I don't think there's anybody out there that's sort of sitting in that position that we can go and cherry pick.
Judging by the recent acquisitions from the Czech First League and where was Mustafa Bundu playing? FC Andorra or the Danish Superliga?
Andorra, much like Ogbeta, that was his loan club, but I think we officially got him from Anderlecht, didn't we?
Yeah, exactly. And then obviously picking up Ben Waine from the A-League, it wouldn't surprise me if we see a keeper come in from the Austrian third division.
It's not impossible. We had the same with Hazard. Obviously, he was a Helsinki player at the time we brought him in.
Exactly.
As I say, the club have access to a lot more data than any of us. There'll be a keeper somewhere that they have their eye on. I just can't imagine he'll be quite as good as the one they've got, but circumstances are what they are.
Exactly. So welcome, Mr. whomever from Austria, would be nice. Well, what else have we got to talk about? Oh, we've done the players coming in, obviously the players departing. Adam, you've sort of already touched on Mickel Miller, haven't you? There's no real shock that he's departed for Huddersfield.
No real shock, and if I'm honest, not a great loss. I mean, it's not as if I didn't like him. It's the fact that we brought in Ogbeta now, and he looks like he's a probable upgrade. It looked quite likely for a very long time, certainly for the last month or so, that Miller was on his way out. It was just a case of where would he go. He got to a stage in the window where I think he'd been linked with about half the country. So he's off. He was always expected to be off, I think, and I think he's already been replaced. So that's fine.
Yeah, you didn't fancy picking up one or two of his sofas, Ben, for your new house?
I didn't notice this. You were saying there was a fire sale in the Miller household, but sadly I wasn't aware. Too late. Not in the loop like you. Not in the know.
Flogging sofas on Instagram. So there's a deal to be had there if anybody needs a 3-piece leather suite. But obviously wish Mickel all the best. I think Huddersfield is a good move for him personally. Obviously they've been linked with Niall Ennis today. I don't know if that's public, but soon find out. Anyway, slipping that in there. In the note. What else is there to talk about? New kit. We've got a new kit. Any strong feelings on that kit? I have. Not a fan. It's slowly growing on me.
It's just the tone of green's not for me. It looks it needs to be warmer if it's going to be light like that. Kind of like it looks in the official photos. Like it's got that kind of like more yellow green, like warmer green, but in actual daylight photos, it looks really like sicky, like mold color. So it's not for me. And the Times New Roman sort of sponsor in the middle makes it look a little bit like a training kit too. But that's personal opinion. It'll probably grow on me. But I don't think it's as nice as last year's.
Yeah, no,
It's not.
no. Oh, go on,
But
Adam.
I just feel like we tend to like the best kit we ever had, in my opinion, was 2018-19, and we had a terrible year that year with the lovely green and black striped kit. Yeah, it was beautiful, and we ended up going down. So I've worked on a theory for a few years that the better our kit is, the worse we do, and that is a very good sign for the season because I'm not a huge fan of how it looks. It's one that I've looked at and think it's one of those that I might buy when it's nearer the end of the season and it reaches the sales. For now, I don't think it's me. Yeah, there you go. Yeah. As I say, anyone can look good in that kit, even if they are meant to be a beached whale in Marbella. So it's it's pretty wonderful.
I
My
can't wait.
favourite look is either the black and the green like that. Although must say I don't really I'm not a big fan of the white collar on that one. But black and green stripes I love, but also white with a green pinstripe. I love that look too. I'd love to see one of those back sometime.
Yeah. It looks like we're about to have it digging out.
I think this one's
find them all.
Okay.
This
Yeah.
one's one of my favourites, but obviously we got relegated in that as well. So maybe there's
Says it all. Says it all. Not a huge
Yeah.
fan of the kit. It means we're in for a good year.
Well, hopefully, but we had a great kit when we won the league title with 101 points as well. So
Every rule's got an exception, so I'm sticking by it.
no, I haven't got a Darren Huckabee shirt. I've got a match worn Russell Martin shirt somewhere. What I was given when I left Norwich City Football Club. But apart from that, yeah, no, just like that. There's obviously a lot of debate. You touched on it, Ben. Obviously, like this green. I don't think we've had a consistent green my whole life. Like, I don't actually know what Argyle green is. I think it's just the cheapest run that Puma will have that. That will do. That's Argyle green for the season. Like,
I was raised on the Rotolock greens, that kind of nice, warm, sort of mid green. Go on, off you go and find one. So to me, that's kind of Argyle green. Although I didn't mind when they brought in the really dark green. That's kind of quite nice because it was not sort of seen like on island kits or anything like that. So yeah, comment on screen. I won't read it because but yeah, feel free to view that comment at this point in the at 47:20. If you're listening on audio, go to YouTube and check out that comment talking about the designers leaving with the manager. Yeah, I don't really like that. That green, it looks, the green of this new kit looks very much like, Northern Ireland, Republic of Ireland, or I don't know if Republic of Ireland is the correct term these days. But it's kind of it's a kind of moldy coloured green, and I think you need that nice, warm, vibrant green if you're going to go light toned, or the dark. But that's we're turning into a bit of a parody of ourselves now.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I mean. There's just no way to nail down like an official club green, because what you think is Argyle green is not what I think is Argyle green, and it's not what Adam thinks.
Controversial and say I don't mind that at all. I think it gives us more flexibility with what we want to do. You look at some really boring kits that get released over the years where they've got to be the same color and they can't have much done to it. We get to work with different shades of green. I'm probably in the minority, but I like it.
Okay, fine.
Some people just want to watch the world burn, don't they?
Yeah.
I
mean, there were a few times this darker green that came in with like the Adidas. We are going off on a tangent here, but I love this. The darker green that went, the racing green that came in with that Adidas rebrand of the roundel, and we followed that green on. Does look very dark on like a midweek under the lights, doesn't it? It's you almost get lost. There's times where we'd be pinging a ball out to a wing, and I'm like, what? Oh, there's a player there. Just did not see them at all, and I'm not even colourblind, so.
Suggesting we should stick with fluorescent green.
Oh, that'd be good. Like this, a neon green, like Michael Cooper's goalkeeper shirt from last season. That'd be nice.
I am now really excited for the second and third kit now, though, because I don't want to get the first kit. I'm excited for the second and third kit. I hope we get a nice tangerine, or
I was going to say that was going to be my next question. What colour do you want the away kit? I'd love another orange one, to be honest. Absolutely.
One of my biggest regrets was not getting. I didn't ever had a lot of money as a kid, so like never got the. I would love to get. If you've got one, go and get it, because I love looking at the tangerine shirts. And it also reminds me of good times. Maybe that's purely what it is, just the kind of.
Sorry to go with classic football shirts. I've got both.
Oh, look at those! Absolutely beautiful. I'd love to.
I don't know who Ball is though. I got this from a charity shop. I don't know who that is. So if not a player,
you'll get a message now from someone.
Hopefully, if I could find out where that came from, and obviously the other one, the TFG, same brand, but they just changed the name, didn't they? So.
Or a nice black one. The kind of I quite like the patterning on the new shirt. So if they replicate that in black or something, that would look quite nice in an away kit. But
I'm getting the impression we might have a black one. I mean, not in the know, like just to make you aware. But I know the shade of green we've gone for. Like usually, if we went for a black away kit, it was kind of like, oh, is it too similar to the home in the sense that it's dark? It's got that similar attribute of you could lose yourself on the pitch, but I think we've kind of lent ourselves now to have the opportunity to have a black away kit, and I'd quite like it. I think. Well, I haven't seen it yet, and it might not even be black, but I hope I like it.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a while. We had that black third kit, didn't we? I don't have that one. If anybody has that in a large or an extra large or a 6XL or whatever we seem to sell up to, I'll buy it off you because that was incredibly limited, and everybody that I try and buy it off doesn't want to sell it to me because they know I don't have it. Bastards. But yeah, I need that just to complete most of my collection. I'd love like a third kit that was just actual pink, like proper pink, neon pink, like Palermo pink, not like what we had last year.
Didn't play into it enough last year, and it felt like the worst of all worlds. It was a bit close to the away kit from afar, and didn't give us the best pink. Yeah, completely agree. That would please me.
Yeah, something proper. Yeah, maybe. Have they? I've not noticed that. Sorry, comment on screen for audio listeners. Zach suggested that noticed the new signings have been in retro shirts. Maybe that's a sign. I haven't noticed that. I've just noticed them in the classic builders, 24, 25, future vintage classic.
There's going to be lots of jokes out there, isn't it, that Argyle's shirt describes their team if we don't do well this season.
Yeah.
Classic builders written on it.
Yeah. What else is there to talk about? I have like a whole list. Orlando Pirates in Spain. Who's buzzing for that? I am. I know that for a fact. That is incredible. That is the best thing about pre-season is when you just get to play the most random teams, and we always seem to just play Cheltenham or Swansea. Like, who cares? Let's go play Orlando Pirates. That's absolutely sick. I cannot wait to go. Obviously, we played Hearts last season. The game in which Freddie Asaka announced himself onto the pre-season scene. I'm hoping for something similar this year. I want to see Tijani do a Jan Songo overhead kick. That'd be class. I'd be a big fan of that. If anybody is heading out to Spain, let us know. We are trying really hard to sort something out whilst we're there. Not going too well, but if it happens, you'll see it. If it doesn't, you won't. Or me and Sam have aforementioned got naked on a beach in Wales. What? Sorry, I can't remember.
I know what my money's on.
Yeah,
like content, salmon, Aaron having these up. Yeah, so
yeah, got the bucket hat ready. Adam, we get to play Cheltenham again. League Cup draw takes us to Cheltenham. I think we should. Sorry to mention Norwich again. But they have cancelled their pre-season with Stevenage because they drew them in the first round of the cup. They've claimed it's pitch difficulties with the pitch. It isn't. They just play them like a week later, so they can't be bothered to play them in pre-season. We should really do that, shouldn't we? And we'll go and play Seville or something instead.
Yeah, if we can get a nicer opponent, then please. Yeah. But important to keep in mind that we're missing out on what had become a traditional Boxing Day journey this year, and clearly the EFL and Argyle themselves are looking to make up for that. So I'll say it this way: going to Cheltenham in the summer is a lot nicer than it is in the middle of December. So maybe we should count our blessings for now.
Yeah, obviously you mentioned. I think that's enough about the Carabao Cup draw, to be honest. I don't think we need to give that any more time. Obviously, you mentioned Boxing Day. Fixtures are out. We're off to Coventry. A nice short one for us up the
nice
somewhere motorway. One of those. I really thought I knew that then. I want to say the M26, but it's definitely not that because that's over in the east. Anyway, fixtures. Somebody had a question about fixtures. Where is it? I'm sure I started it, but I don't think I did. This is going really well, isn't it? Oh God, I didn't star it. Anyway, thoughts on the fixture list, Ben? Any that stick out for you? Obviously, we have a few changes.
I think Adam and I, what's the word? We worked together. Let's put it that way, on a piece for.
You did, yes. That's why I brought it up. Tell me about your piece. See, I knew you'd be on it.
My article, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'll let Adam do that because he's much more articulate than me. But the three things that jumped out at me were the start, the run in, the first few fixtures, the final few fixtures. But more than anything else, I think the thing that jumped out at me looking at the fixtures is when I looked through them all and was looking for. By the way, Aaron has put his rotor lock style bucket hat on that he's demonstrating for all those requesting in the comments to see his bucket hat, the very bucket hat that he will be covering his bits with when he's been caught naked on a beach in Spain.
Can neither confirm nor deny.
Yeah, I'm going to stop there because it's live. Yeah, my biggest concern when I was looking through the fixture list was the lack of easy pickings. I think when I looked through last seasons, there were a few teams that I thought, oh, we're playing Huddersfield here and there. We're playing Rotherham here and there. There were other teams. Blackburn were a bit of a basket case. There were a few others who didn't necessarily end up going down, but there were ones that looked obvious for potential for points. And other than Oxford, I don't think there's anybody who's a real basket case at the moment. Oh, Wednesday was the other one, wasn't it? At the start of the season, on the eve of the season, Wednesday were a state. But a lot of those teams that were in turmoil seem to have sort of fixed themselves. QPR was another one who now are in great form. I think QPR of the teams we face early doors who are supposedly, we've got an early start, an easy start to the season. And QPR, who are the other ones, Adam, that we've got early doors, but they're actually in great runs of form to end the season?
Yeah, you mentioned Wednesday as well, haven't you? So it's kind of those two are kind of viewed
Stoke,
as
is it
the
Stoke
easier
the other one?
fixtures. Yes,
Stoke's
off
the
the
other
top of my
one.
head, I think so. Yeah.
I think like they each won. They only lost one of their last 8 or 9 matches in the end of last season, and they're keeping their good young managers. They're keeping most of their squad. So that seemingly easy start to the season isn't necessarily going to be as easy as some might think potentially. That said, that the tough end to the season that it looks like we've got, the run in last season, we managed to beat the 2 best sides in that run. In terms of league position, Hull and Leicester. So there's not necessarily too much to worry about there. Strange results happen in a run-in. But yeah, the biggest concern for me was looking through the fixtures and thinking there's not really, other than Oxford, and they'll probably bristle at the idea and sort of say we're down there in the same category. But there weren't many teams I thought, a basket cases or have dodgy managers or stuck in a bad situation that I think we're going to go and potentially go away and pick up 3 points from and do the double over during the season. So yeah, that was my biggest worry, I think, looking at the fixture list. Other than that, there's going to be some brilliant games. It's going to be a really tight league. And the return of the the Dockyard Derby that everyone likes to try and call it, and Argyle fans and Pompey fans bristle at. But it's always a great game, decent set of fans. There's a lot of good teams to play this season. We get to wind up Leeds again. There'll be a lot of needle with a lot of the teams that we sort of annoyed last season and vice versa, Stoke, etc. So I think there's that, in terms of if we can get some results anyway, in terms of who we're facing, there's a lot of great games to be had. My biggest concern is how many are, at least where we stand right now, there's a lot of business to be done. How many of them are winnable? Let's hope enough of them are winnable to keep us up.
Yeah, I think we've covered pretty much everything. There's a couple of questions Should we finish on a couple of questions and call it a night? Unless you guys have got anything else to add. Adam, Stevie Vaughan, who is happy with the fixture changes? Are you happy? To be fair, they could have been a lot worse, couldn't they, for us?
I think that's my reaction. Yeah, it could have been a lot worse. For the number of games that could have been moved, it's not particularly fun that our first 2 away days of the season have been moved. Well, it does mean we get home from QPR a little earlier, which I suppose is nice. They're all early starts anyway. But yeah, it just the 3, isn't it? The Wednesday, QPR and Luton. Am I right in saying that have been moved at the moment? So that's handy. It could have been an awful lot more. So considering we're kind of rolling in it from the new TV till, as every other club is, the effect of that is not quite as bad as I feared it might be thus far, anyway.
Well, I suppose you could technically argue that Wednesday's been moved as well to a Sunday, but they're all a bit skew with that
Which, to
weekend,
be
aren't
fair,
they?
I did indeed mention, but I
Oh,
can
did you?
forgive you again.
Oh, sorry.
Well, I think
So,
I did. Unless I've made a rod for my own back. If anyone wants to VAR the last minute, then please let me know. But
well, I won't. The good thing is, obviously, alongside them putting money into the Argyle coffers, Sky Plus are going to be sponsoring the pod next season. So I have to do some very awkward voiceovers and bits of audio for that. So that'd be good. Might have a couple of less drinks, a couple of fewer drinks when I do that. Where are these questions anyway? Talking about fixtures, Ben. Bristol or Portsmouth? Which game is bigger, the Dockyard Derby or the Suspension Bridge Derby?
The Isambard Kingdom Brunel Derby. I think Portsmouth, just because of recent year. I don't know if historically Bristol is big. You'll have to go back more years than mine too, but definitely sort of like the Adams era interactions with Portsmouth are quite fun. Definitely, I think in the modern experience, Portsmouth has been a bigger game. I don't think for me Bristol was ever one that, other than it was close to get to, was ever a big deal in the in a derby kind of sense or in a special occasion kind of sense.
I just don't think we have a derby. I know this sounds mad because of Exeter up the road, but when we play Exeter, I just don't care. Like, I just don't care enough. They're just like an annoying little brother that you're just like, oh, piss off, mate. Like, I just don't see that as like, I don't really want to win that game. I just don't care enough. Like, there's no club that we play that I just really want to beat.
I do. I think when I'm like a little bit older than you, like Exeter was a big, even when we were sort of in the same division as them and Torquay, when we were sort of at the depths. And I know some people will sort of say, oh, like share similar sentiments, but I've, heard stories of quite, well, maybe not suitable for the pod, but I think a lot of people from both who support both clubs feel quite strongly about that match. I do feel, having not been in the same division for quite a while, for quite a number of years now, has dulled the animosity between the two clubs, but amongst some, especially the younger fan base. But I think the vitriol was quite real for if you go back a number of years.
Yeah, I mean, there's a few teams where we've had like you said, you mentioned the Derek Adams days against Portsmouth where I wanted to beat them, and the more recent times against Ipswich and stuff. But that's purely like, I'm over that now. I want to see, well, maybe not Portsmouth, but I want to see Ipswich do well in the Premier League, which I didn't think I'd be saying 2 seasons ago. Where are the other questions? Let's just get through these.
You better be careful next time you step out in Norwich, mate. You're saying things like that.
Yeah, I know. I made sure my window is shut when I said that. Signings like Tijani are a positive. Now let's get 2 creative midfielders. Adam, will we see a big signing?
I think we probably will, and I think it will be tinged with a little bit of sadness because I imagine that big signing will come as a result of the fee we get for Cooper and hey, possibly Whittaker as well. I know there's been no rumours surrounding him at the moment, but this time last year we hadn't signed him yet, so there's a lot still to do. I think we're going to see plenty more action in the transfer market without a doubt, both incoming and outgoing. We can only hope at this stage that most of it is for the best. I think that the comment saying 2 creative midfielders, I think we need at least one. I don't know what once we've spent that, depending on who that one is, whether we need another. There's clearly some argument in terms of the depth, which admittedly JB does help with. So, it's there's plenty to do, and there's plenty that will be done. And well, as I've said, hopefully most of it is for the best.
I know this is maybe kind of reckless, and this is a reason why I don't run Plymouth Argyle Football Club. But does it not make more sense to spend that money before we get it for Cooper? Because once we get it for Cooper, clubs are going to know we've got it, so therefore we're going to put their prices up. Or is that?
I mean, it's all a game around the negotiating table, isn't it? Ultimately, I mean, they'll go in. One club will know the position the other's in when they do it. The well-run clubs will be more researched and be able to get themselves the better deal. And you'd like to think we're one of those. So, I mean, we had the issue with last year with Azaz, where we kind of backed ourselves into a corner by not being able to complete that permanent deal. So perhaps there is an argument to speculate to accumulate, and particularly if we kind of know the Cooper money is going to come in, that can give us an opportunity. But hey, I'm not a director of football. I imagine that is the sort of thing that they'll have considered, and will all be brought to a floor in the negotiating table when the deals are done.
Yeah, true. Ben, following on from that question, how many more incomings if there are no major outgoings? So if we don't get rid of Cooper, how many more incomings do you still?
Well, if there are no major outgoings, so we keep Gibson, we keep Cooper, we keep Whitaker. We've got a pretty full squad, haven't we? If that's the case.
Yeah.
Especially
I assume major outgoings includes like the likes of maybe Ben Wayne and Saxon Early going on loan. I wouldn't see them major outgoings.
But even then, I feel like we've kind of got first team people in most positions. There'll have to be people that the manager really wants, or roles that he sees pivotal that we don't have, to bring in players to sort of supplant the ones we've got, because we've got a pretty full squad. I think. Well, if we've got like 17 players under contract, if I'd have known this, we'd talk like this. I'd have got the list up. But especially if we're looking at bringing players through like Roberts and Osaka, who I both think could do well under the new manager. He's shown in the past his willingness to blood youngsters. Then there's not really much space. You kind of need the major outgoings, not just for the money to get the decent, the quality replacements, but in terms to free up enough space, because otherwise you're going to have some discontent in the squad. You've got quite a few, there's very few players out of contract this season who probably we wouldn't have looked to move on anyway, like Miller, for example. We've re-signed Galloway, who we wanted. We've brought back JB, and so, I think the biggest areas that we needed to fill are midfield and up front. We've now got bodies in, as we said earlier. So if we look to bring in sort of like a splash signing in either of those positions, I think that's possible. Could also be defensive additions, but I think we've got in 2 decent defenders to replace what we had last season. There's rumours Scar might be off to Birmingham. If that's true, then I'd suggest there might be a look at bringing in a decent right-sided centre-back or central centre-back, although probably right-sided, playing with a back four more than likely. So that's possible. But again, I just don't see the... it's all. There's a comment on screen that says that answer worries me. There's players in the squad that we know aren't ready. I'd like to see a squad of 25 first teamers, or those potentially, to fight for the first team. But then I understand the concept of that. What worries me is you're then not playing people like Osaka, Roberts, and giving opportunities to those who are coming back from injury or looking to make a claim for the first team. You're writing people off before they've had a chance to play. And I know that's what pre-season's for, and the manager can be ruthless if he chooses to. But I would suggest that for the first half of the season until January, the squad we've got has a chance to stake its claim under the new manager. If not, that feels a bit harsh. It's business. Business is business. But I'd suggest that there won't be too many. I'd say if no one goes out, if none of what we'd call the starting 11 were to leave, so, and by starting 11, I was probably talking about sort of 13, 14 players, Houghton, Forshaw, etc. in the midfield, and we kind of know the back four, etc. If none of those go, I can't really see more than 3 or 4 people coming in, because there's just too many. I can only see discontent arising from that. If a couple of people go, all of a sudden there's all kinds of possibilities, because you can shuffle things around. And the other thing as well is, there are injuries that occur during the season. So, there is the ability to maybe go deep and double up in places, because injuries happen. We look at Bundu, and Hardy getting injured was a bit of a pickle. These kind of things. So I mean, personally, just to go deeper in the conversation, there's people I would like to get rid of, like Ben Waine. I've made no bones about the fact that I don't think that Ben Waine is cut out for this league currently. So whether he went on loan or permanent somewhere, etc., etc. So I think there's room for the squad to be improved for definite. But I'm basing my answer on the question that was put up, which was without any major outgoings, which I've included, or thinking it includes loans, etc. So on that basis, no. But there are plenty of, there are plenty of places we could improve in the squad, for sure.
Yeah, Adam, Ben's just mentioned him there, but a question here from Rosa. From a striking perspective, it seems to me that Ben Waine was improving greatly towards the end of last season, playing for the New Zealand team, who won basically the oceanic version of the Euros, didn't they? Against massive sides like Vanuatu and sides like that.
The Solomon Islands.
Exactly. That will surely help his confidence. And actually, to be fair, like a striker, goals against anybody, it improves your confidence. So that's not wrong. Will there be a place for him? Ben said that he would like to see him get a loan somewhere. What about you?
Yeah. First of all, important to note, New Zealand don't always win the Oceanic Confederation competition. It's got to mean something that Tahiti got it in 2012, and Ben Waine has ensured without any doubt that they do not do it again. That being said,
when I used Tahiti as to make a mockery of the competition, I didn't actually think they'd won it. So fair play to them. Giant.
Yeah.
They've won it more times than I have. So fair play.
In 2013 that they will not forget. But I think generally speaking, I would really, really like him to be on loan somewhere. Doing that is obviously easier said than done because we may well need that depth. I mean, Tijani helps, but we needed a striker anyway. And if we were to then loan out Waine, we probably need another one, which again is tricky in the market. The reason I say that is because I think there are tools there that could make him a genuinely good player, a genuinely good striker at this level. But I think it's very clear that he's not there yet. He really needs not just, we joke about it, not just, an oceanic tournament to get him into gear. He probably needs a full season at Football League level to really get him into the groove of the game in England. And
he absolutely screams Leighton Orient, doesn't he? I don't know. There's something about him. Just like,
probably because he got a brace against them last year, and they probably had their eye on him ever since. Or maybe not. Who knows? Yeah, someone like that, for example, would be handy for him. I do also get the argument that because we'd have to move so many blocks to get that loan in place, because we'd have to get so many the options in and spend more of our budget, that it could be the case now that it's best to cut ties. It's best to just sell now and say, I think the Ben Waine experiment has failed. Because let's not forget, we speak about him as if we brought him through the academy and he's some sort of budding youngster. We know he's not. We know he's a player we spent a six-figure sum on. And in all honesty, we would have expected more from a player that we spent that money on. So it's not worked so far. I think there's enough tools there to suggest it can, and I think a loan would be the absolute best outcome. But I can also appreciate the argument that that's just unsatisfactory as well, and getting rid would be an option. But just on a personal level, I think we'd all like Ben Waine at Plymouth Argyle to work. It's just one of those that I feel is a little easier said than done again.
Yeah, I'm going to wrap this up. A couple of last questions. I know I said that, but people keep getting good questions in the comments, Adam. I'm going to come back to you. Obviously, we've already got Darko Gyabi back. Marcus has asked, what's happening with Phillips and Devine? Would you take anybody else that we had last season back on loan?
My girl wants to party with.
Yeah, well, for that reason, without a doubt, anything that would get us singing on the Barbican again to serenade Alfie Devine is a good one. I mean, I suppose look, they both have their flaws as players, but I suppose based on what I said with JB, i.e., in 18 months, you expect to see a very different player at the end of that spell to the start. There's every chance that both could come in, or one or either, and improve to the levels that we've seen in the past with the likes of Azaz. I'm not going to lose any sleep if we don't, in truth, because as I've mentioned, they do have the flaws, and if we do have a budget that allows us to get genuine upgrades there, rather than having to rely too much on the youngsters again, then I'd like to see it. But at the same time, it's a decision I'd support because, much like JB, much like I've just mentioned with Ben Waine, both players are younger than Ben Waine. There are tools there for all of them. In the right system, they can work. If we do switch to, for example, that 4-3-3 that I was mentioning earlier, playing Divine a little deeper than he was used to last year, I think we all agree that was probably his best position. That could work. Would I trust Ashley Phillips in a 2 at the back rather than the 3? I'm not so sure I would, but again, he could improve. So yeah, massively non-committal answer. I wouldn't be against either, but I wouldn't particularly mind if we didn't get any of them at the same time, provided we do upgrade in those areas in the absence of that.
Yeah, I personally wouldn't mind either Phillips or Divine back. Oh, look at me! I'm giving an opinion. That's rare. I think Phillips came on. He sort of maybe did the opposite. The fact that he looked brilliant the first few games, and then sort of regressed to the mean, to use a term that Ben would use. After that, and I think actually, like you said, there's a player in there. 18 months time, he's going to be a phenomenal defender. I think I would happily take Phillips back. Divine is another one. People are, hanging their hat on the JB performance at Middlesbrough, and I think if Divine could play like he did against Hull, I don't see much difference there. I think that they would. I would happily take both of them back. I'd rather take this other lad, this striker that we're linked to from Tottenham's youth team. I can't remember the name of, but I'm sure you do.
Donnelly. Yeah. I should make clear that those links are pretty tenuous at this stage, but it would be nice all the same.
Yeah. I was going to say you can follow argyle.life/transfers to see how highly Adam rates that transfer possibility of happening. Where did we say? So we've done that question. We've done this one. Last one then, Ben. Stevie Vaughan. I'm going to couple both of his questions. He says, if there's one player you'd like to take off a rival and sign, who would it be? He also said Aziz in talks with Millwall. Weren't we in for him last January? He is somebody that I would like to see. But anybody that isn't Aziz is an easy answer. Cop-out answer.
Cop-out answer. Well, the obvious answer is Somerville from Leeds. If we're talking sort of relatively doable, I don't know. It's really hard because I take these questions too seriously, and I try and imagine what our sort of budget would be, and is this pre or post after we've sold Cooper and all this stuff. I think Wesley Hoot, he's still way above our budget and etc. But I think he'd be brilliant for the style of play that Rooney wants to. The way he chips a ball left and right is just beautiful. One of the best centre backs in division, never going to come here in his current form, but he would be a player I'd love to watch week in, week out.
Go on, Adam. You're the man that knows the stats. You play a lot of Football Manager. Who are you bringing in?
Wow. I didn't think this would become my way. Is there someone I'd like to take off a rival? I mean, right. I'll try and think of one as I just back up what Ben said on Wesley here. I think he's a terrific player, one of the best defenders in the league, one of the best ball-playing defenders, I think, in England. You can tell exactly why he's made so many appearances at Premier League levels, got to that stage. So if we did have a chance of taking him, then I'd be all over it, quite honestly. In terms of our direct rivals, it's tough because the idea of what we'd be looking at from what we consider our rivals would be the teams that went down last season. So I guess they're not necessarily our rivals anymore. I look, for example, at a terrific player I think this season has been Sorba Thomas at Huddersfield, who has posted some very good numbers. But again, with a lot of these signings, I think there's a chance that they could easily end up at higher clubs than ourselves. So I'm going to take the question very literally. in terms of who do we want to sign from our rivals, and I'm going to suggest that we raid Exeter City for Zach Jules. I know he's been linked with us, but he wasn't necessarily the best in League One, particularly when he played for Milton Keynes. I didn't think he was particularly terrific at all, but he's done so well at Exeter and has turned down the new deal. And if nothing else, bringing him in would just be very funny. So, that's the one I'm going to go with. I say he's been linked to us again. It's a pretty tenuous link. I can't particularly see it, but it would be worth it for the fan reaction alone, I think. So that's the one I'm going to go for.
Also worth going and raiding Peterborough and Lincoln. There's a dearth of, not a dearth, there's a glut rather of quality players there. I know they're not our direct rivals, but I think that would be the kind of pools we'd be fishing in. There's some real good talent floating around in the top of League One at the moment.
Yeah, I'm not going to give it away, but I did a season preview for a national, publication, in which we had to submit our answers months ago, and I said I'd like to see Josh Coburn in. But now we've got Tijani, I'm not really sure there'd be much need. We've got the Nigerian Coburn. That's how I look at it. So we don't need Is Josh Coburn Scottish? No, can't be, because he'd have been in the Scotland team, wouldn't he? Anyway, let's call that a night. I think that's everything, unless there's anything to add, guys.
Lovely to see you again, boys.
And you.
Yeah, I think, can only echo it. It's been far too long.
Oh, here we go. Kenny's saying that Zach Jules signed for Rotherham, so we can't do that.
We'll have to find somebody else from our direct local rivals to steal. Was it Joel Grant, or was it Josh Grant we took from them? One of the two, one of the Grants. Let's do that again.
Yeah, it was Joel Grant, wasn't it? Josh Grant came from Bristol.
Yeah, he was the loanee, wasn't he? Yeah.
Yeah. No, he came from Chelsea. Whatever. Anyway, call that a night. What do I do? Say here? Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, give us a little thumbs up on YouTube, all that stuff, retweet, whatever, follow, comment, all that jazz. Make sure you follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, which I've completely neglected, and follow us on your podcast platforms if you haven't already. And if you're listening to this on a podcast platform, go and subscribe to us on YouTube. Bye.